So again, two branches closing $4 million each a month. Okay. One branch loses 5,000. The other branch makes 16,000. I'm going to show it to you in a format. Okay. I am going to show this to you in a format. When you realize it, you're going to say, oh man, the problem's right here. By the time we get done, folks, and this is something somebody said to me the other day, they said, Tom, you just improve our sensories. And I said, well, I don't know what you mean by that, but go ahead. And he says, I could always open the refrigerator up and I could smell there was something rotten in there, but it would take me a long time to figure out what was rotten. After I get done with you, I'd open the refrigerator. I'd smell there was something rotten. I'd look in the bottom right-hand corner and say, it's the grapefruit right there. And I think that's what we have the ability to be able to do once you see it. So I think when you realize this, you'll look at it, you'll go kudos. It's like, holy cow. Tim, there's some stuff popping in the chat. Hopefully you got it. I don't have to worry about it, right?
Yeah, we're all set with there. So thanks for that. I will grab those questions at the next, after you do these two.
Okay, great.
Example.
So here's branch one, as you see it. As we look at it, it's branch one. And I'm going to go across the line. The date. Now, let me caution you something on the date. The date is the year first and the month second. So this is March of 2023. If I did it the other way, it wouldn't, trust me, I did it. I screwed it up. If I did it the other way, 0323, it wouldn't stack the right way. When we sort it, the sorting was off because you had 01, 02, all the way 11, 10. It was all screwed up. So I said, how can we change that? We put the year first, then it sorts correctly. So this is March of 2023. The top business blueprint. Now this is taking the complex P&L, 3 pages, 4 pages, combined with a production report, get all the residuals, push it off to the side. Once you've input this into our system, you're golden. This number is 264. So the top business blood pressure is 264. The bottom business blood pressure, this is all the revenue that you took in. The bottom business blood pressure is 104. That's the cost to get a loan out the back door, except for LO comp. CPI, remember, A minus B equals C. 264 minus 104, it's 160. The LO comp in basis points in this example for the first branch is 120. I take 160 now minus 120. We had 40 basis points in profit. I take 40 basis points in profit multiplied by 4 million comes out to $16,000. I just rounded it down to the number. How this 45% comes down, as you start to realize it, you just take the LO comp and divide it by the top business blood pressure number. That'll give you a percentage of LO comp you're paying out. So if the model's broken, we can look at it and we can say, if that number is 80%, you can't sustain a business model where you're paying out 80% of $1 coming in the door. No restaurant can sustain it. No corporation can sustain it. No mortgage banker and no branch at a mortgage banker office. Trust me on this, folks. I did some investigation on some of these companies that went down. This was a trigger that happened right there. So now let's look at the second branch. Second branch is B102. This is the one that lost 5,000. I think you can kind of see that. Tim, if I'm in the way, just tell me to move my head down or up or whatever it is, okay?
Looks good.
2303. The top business blood pressure is 285. The bottom business blood pressure is 168. I'm going to show you how they compare in a minute. 117. A minus B equals 117. They paid out. So remember, CPI is all the money you have left over to pay the loan officers and for profit. Okay? So I don't have, if I'm paying out 130 in LO comp, I don't have enough to even pay the LO. So now I got to go negative on my basis points as far as the loss is concerned. Take 13 basis points multiplied by 4,990,980. It equals $5,000 in a loss. Let's look at them side by side. Okay. Let's just compare. The branch who made money actually generated less revenue by 21 basis points. This branch brought in 285 in revenue. This branch only brought in 264. Where the rubber meets the road here is that you can see when you compare the two of these, this branch 102 has got a whole lot of expenses. I'll give you my summary at the end. They only have 117 left over to pay 130. They lose 13 basis points. They did almost exactly the same number. There's a $21,000 swing in between the two. So now you start to realize, like, holy cow. So if I'm going to troubleshoot this with you, and I'm going to teach you how to troubleshoot this if you join our program, is how do you do this? Its bottom line is this particular company. So I can tell you what's happening here. This company was probably built for a $7 or an $8 million branch based upon the expenses. And ultimately they didn't right size the business to what the volume is going to be. Now, ultimately, this might have been built for 8 million because they were doing it during refi mania, right? And that number would be half. 168. If you look at, you double the volume, this number goes in half. So it would have been 84 basis points to get a loan out the back door. Well, 84 onto that 13, they'd have made, 71 basis points in profit. High five me, right? That's where it's at. But this is the issue. So now we need to look into the P&L to say, where are our expenses out of control, right? Do we have unused capacity for processing? Ultimately, that's the killer. That's the widowmaker, right? You start to realize that. Sometimes you've got a processor. If you're only bringing in 7 loans a month and you got a processor who can do 20, that 13, the 13 loan unused capacity is the one that's going to strangle you on the bottom number. Now, we can get into all the details as far as how do you do it. She's been with me a while. She's my sister-in-law. I'm not going to get into all that, but ultimately you've got 2 choices. You either fix this number or you accept the fact that you're going to lose $5,000 each and every month. Folks, I'm okay if you want to accept that you're losing $5,000. I'm not okay if you don't put it into this format. I realize I troubleshooted it. There's nothing I can do. I got a lease on a building that I don't use anymore, and that's killing me right now. I don't know what that number is, but ultimately we know this is the area that we have to fix. Everything else is in line. This is the area we have to fix. So I've got to prescribe for you what needs to lower your blood pressure. Okay. I'm sure you got questions coming out galore on this one, Tim.
Yeah, I got 2 questions here that just come out really
So just
quick.
as you see that, let me just make sure I got the right slide. Okay. Okay. So before I go ahead, I'll get into my conclusion, based upon what we're seeing.
Right. The first question is from a branch manager, says that they typically look at their numbers, finish the month, they look to the back page, and kind of like what you're showing here, they see a profit or loss. So the question is more around the loss. If I find myself in the red, how do I know what to troubleshoot? So if my bottom blood pressure in this case is 168, really great question. How do I know what to fix?
Well, we know that this is out of whack, right? So it just becomes, I'll tell you the brief story. And first of all, I have high blood pressure, found out it was hereditary. I'll tell you a 30-second version of what I'm going to talk about. I was in Cancun. I go to get my blood pressure. My wife says, call the house doctor. Guy puts a cuff on my sleeve and he says, do you have high blood pressure? I said, no, I don't think so. I had this headache I couldn't get rid of. He pulls it. I look on his face. I wish I could have taken a picture of it. He says, your blood pressure is like 192 over 130. And I looked at him and I said, is that bad? First thing we got to do is you got to know what your blood pressure is. The second thing you got to be able to do is you got to know what normal was. I didn't know what normal was. 125 over 75 or 130 over 180, that's normal, right? I realized how far away I was from normal. Same thing you see here. The cool thing about our system is that you're going to see a database, whether you're just a solopreneur or you're doing multiple branches. You're going to be able to look at a branch that just like this, you're going to be able to say, wait a minute, here's a branch that's doing exactly the same amount as I did. And they made 16,000, I lost 5,000. What's the difference? The difference is right here. They kept their expenses under control, or they right-sized their organization for the volume that they were doing. They need to work on this here. You can just see it jumps off the charts. So you'll see the ability to be able to compare, even if it's your number, or you'll be able to see it against somebody else's number, but you won't know who the identity of that person is you're comparing to.
Second
Next
question, quick one. They ask, can you point out the par that you just mentioned a few minutes back? Where's the par on this? What would it be?
Well, first of all, I need to remember the first thing I'll tell you is you got to keep the CPI above 130. The CPI is below 130 here. You can see they lost money. They're way above 130 here. I think I'll answer that question when I show you the charts.
Okay, thanks. Okay, again, email. I got some emails that are coming in Tim@profitabilitycoach.com if you want to email me your questions, or in the chat. Thanks, Tom.
So branch 102, too many people, not enough loans. That would be my conclusion as you start to realize that. That's the single thing I could tell you. My conclusion would be, you'll see this, folks. I've seen, I'm a huge advocate of watching the World Series of Poker on TV. I remember 25 years ago, there was only the veterans that were on there because they would only play live games. Well, today you see the young whippersnappers on there because they're playing 7 games at a time on the internet. So they're seeing hand after hand after hand. I'm showing you, you'll see branch after branch after branch, and you're going to start to realize this is like, holy cow. You'll establish your own pars. There's more than one way to make money. You can either have a higher top number or a bottom lower number, right? And let's go back to this just for a minute. I want to summarize this just to give you an idea. How do I increase the CPI? One of two ways, only one of two ways. Increase the top, decrease the bottom.